Welcome to another edition of Teach the Geek interviews. My name is Neil Thompson. I am the founder of Teach the Geek. I work with technical professionals so they can present more effectively, especially in front of non-technical audiences. And you can learn more about that at teachthegeek.com. Again, that's teachthegeek.com. Today, my guest is Chaitali Narla, and she is a founder, CTO, and coach. Whenever I get somebody on the podcast who left corporate to start their own thing, it's always a treat to talk to them. So I'm really interested to learn more about her time in corporate America and her motivations to start her own ventures, and of course, how public speaking has benefited her. So welcome to Teach the Geek Interviews, Chaitali.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
So from the bit of research I did on you, I saw that you initially studied information technology in school. So what was the motivation to do that?
I think, it's one of the flavors of computer science. That's how the degree was available in my undergrad in India. And my motivation actually was I did not like doing calculations in mathematics. I hated numbers. And then, I was introduced to computer science and I was like, oh, I can get a machine to do this for me. Cool. So I think that was a big motivation, and that grew into, obviously a career and a lifelong passion. So here I am, almost 20 years later, and still interested in the field because of it.
Wonderful. But and you didn't stop there. I saw you got a master's in computer engineering too. So what prompted you to do that?
I think really, like, once that passion started, it grew. Understanding computers, understanding, at the time, programming, and then also that developed further into how is software built and deployed and products made. So that was like the big motivation for doing my grad school, learning more deeply this domain and this field overall was something I wanted to do.
All right. So you get a bachelor's degree, you get a master's degree, but I noticed you didn't get a PhD. So how come you stopped at the master's?
Well, I did an internship at Google while I was doing my grad school, and they offered me a full-time role. So that got very interesting and exciting. And I think I was ready to learn more of what I call applied computer science and how, the real software is built and used by billions of people worldwide. And I will say that, even though I didn't get a PhD, I think I got a lot of that real world experience from my 15 years at Google.
Got it. But I also noticed that you got an MBA. So what was the motivation to get that degree?
Well, one was just wanting to go back to school, I guess. No, the real motivation was so at the time I did my MBA, it was my executive MBA from Berkeley Haas. I was an engineering director at Google. And I really wanted to become more T-shaped, when it comes to the broader business landscape, because more and more I was finding that just being an engineer was getting only half the job done. And I wanted to understand more about other business functions, how broadly engineering fit into that landscape, and so on. So that's where like the motivation for the MBA came into the picture. And I got a lot of that through the program.
How did your engineering background help you in doing an MBA, if at all?
I think it brought a different domain expertise. Almost everybody in my cohort, had a domain expertise. We had doctors, lawyers, engineers like me, and I think that core domain expertise, even now when anyone asks me, like, should I do an MBA? My first response is, well, you do need a domain expertise outside of the MBA as well. And then layering it on top was very useful to really become, a more T-shaped executive with a domain knowledge and a broader understanding of the business.
All right. So during your time in corporate America, what types of jobs or what types of roles did you do?
Well, I started as a software engineer at Google, a recent graduate, and then proceeded on to being a tech lead, switched to becoming an engineering manager. That was, I think, a pretty significant change from being an individual contributor to being a manager. And then the later half of my career there was growing into management all the way to director. So all of the roles I've held have been in engineering, but different flavors, if you will, of the types of roles in an engineering organization, in a tech company.
For someone who wants to be a leader of others or manager of others, what skills do they need to develop to take on such a role?
I think the first realization was that it's a role of service and it's not a role of power. If you're looking at it as you're going to get more power, you will in some ways, but that is the wrong perspective, in my opinion, to look at it. The best managers I've found when I was looking for folks within my organization to become managers were the ones who looked at it as a role of service, as something where you're going to have to give more than you receive. There are going to be many days when you won't get credit, you won't be acknowledged, and being okay with that and still doing your best for others is super important, in my opinion.
How would you advise somebody to prepare to be a leader?
You don't have to be in a management role, in my opinion, to be a leader. I think everybody can be a leader in many different ways. One, I always talk about ownership. I talk about, you can run towards problems. You can step up and take ownership of the problem from end to end. A lot of people, especially if you're working in any 500 people plus sized organizations, a lot of folks try to make swim lanes. They try to stay within that and decide, what is my job, what isn't my job. But the ones who truly show up as leaders are the ones who will say, well, I'm going to own this completely and I will work with whoever it takes to deliver the solution, even if it means sometimes learning something that is not my core job, and even if it means working with folks who are not in my direct field. For example, like working with product managers or program managers was very much something I developed over time as an engineer, and it wasn't, my core part of the job when it started.
Okay. When it comes to managing others, what's one thing that you didn't anticipate having to do as a manager of people that you ended up very much having to do?
A lot of logistical and administrative work. I think many new managers, including me, always feel like, oh, I'm gonna have all these people reporting to me, and one of them, one of my minions is going to handle all the administrative tasks. It actually doesn't work that way. If you're a good manager, you're going to give the most productive time to your reports. And that means you're going to have to take on the glue work, the grungy work, the administrative work that nobody wants to do. This includes maybe clearing out the paper plates and cups after a team event. It probably includes like figuring out, the seating arrangement for your team in an open space layout, and all sorts of those kind of things, writing status update reports and whatnot, that you don't want to give your team because you want to protect their time to be productive and get them that deep work time they need. So that was an unexpected thing that I learned. Again, it goes back to that idea that this is a service role, not a power role.
That's so interesting. And I could definitely see why perhaps you wouldn't want to assign the getting the cups and the plates, gathering them up when they're after a team function, because you wouldn't want any of your direct reports to think, why am I the one doing this as opposed to somebody else? Do they think less of me because they have me doing this, what do they call it, non-promotable task?
Yeah, yeah, totally. And also, you're protecting their time, right? They could probably be doing something else that is deeper work and delivering on maybe a new feature, maybe some innovative idea. That goes to like helping them get the best of their time and energy.
Yeah, that makes sense. All right, so you spend all this time in corporate America, but you eventually decide to strike out and do your own thing. So what was the motivation for you to do that?
I think a lot of lessons learned over the years and really wanting to use them in my own life. I think that was one motivation. The other was I also felt like there were a lot of lessons I hadn't learned yet. And in the past 5 months, I started in Jan of this year. I think that's true. There's a lot of learning. It's very different when you're a founder yourself and or you're working in a very early stage startup like I am. I'm the CTO of Glide. We're an early stage startup. And those lessons are not something you can learn in larger company. You will have a lot of scaffolding and a lot of things pre-built in that environment. So you're never going to learn wearing many hats and bootstrapping something. So if that is something that you want to learn, I think this is the way to do it.
Yeah, it certainly sounds so. So when it comes to even starting a company, what's something that you think people don't anticipate having to do, coming from the corporate environment?
My sharpest lesson was that, you're going to have to really talk about what you have built in a way that people understand and are willing to pay for your service. And that's very different from when you're working in a larger corporate setting. Many times, especially those of you who are in builder roles, you can build it and kind of walk away from it, knowing that someone else will take the time to understand it and sell it for you. So I think that was my sharpest lesson, that you have to really put on many hats and learn to put them on for longer periods of time and learn to put them on somewhat well, at least. If not, I'm not the best marketer, but I had to learn a lot of those principles and techniques in the past few months to be able to talk about what am I doing and why should you be interested in it.
Yeah, I think a lot of technical people may even struggle with that type of thing, especially if it's not something they had to do in their roles when they were in corporate America or just in a
Totally.
corporate environment. I mean, there's a number of things that need to get done, and someone has to do them, and here you are. So it's gonna fall on
That's how it
somebody,
is.
so it might as well be you. So you better figure it out. Yeah.
Totally, totally.
I'm sure there's a lot of that. I mean, I mentioned when I first introduced you that you're also a coach. So what do you coach people on?
So I coach people on growing their tech careers. One of the things that I saw, in my time at Google and growing from frontline manager to eng director was that a lot of individual contributors in the senior to senior staff. So this is like mid-career ICs, engineers, product managers just did not know many of the processes that evaluated their performance, that evaluated their performance for compensation, for promotion, for even ratings. It was very opaque to folks, and many were mystified, like, why did I get this lower rating, or why did I expected an exceeds and I've landed at just another meets, or I expected to get promoted this year, that didn't happen. So that's one aspect of it. But then also, folks are very hesitant to ask these questions. Like many folks I came across, even my reports initially and now my coaching clients, I asked them, like, have you asked your manager why you got this lower rating? And they're like, no, I don't know what to ask. Like, I don't know how to discuss this. So that's what I coach folks on how to understand and communicate your value at the right time in the right place so that you get credit for it in all of these formal systems. And then also how to figure out what is valued in your organization, again, so you can work towards that and get credit for it.
Yeah, I mean, it's so interesting you're talking about this, Chaitali, because whenever I do these interviews and just on my YouTube channel, I talk about the importance of technical people being their biggest advocates because we shouldn't assume that others know what we want. So it's so interesting when you're when you're saying that these people were going through these reviews thinking that they're going to get promotions and then they don't, but then they don't even think to ask their boss why. But so because the boss is just supposed to know that this is something that you want to do, like, why should they even
Yeah,
know that? I mean,
yeah.
it's on isn't it on you as the technical person or as the direct report to say where you want to go and then ask how do I get there?
Yeah, and you also are helping your boss in a way, right? When you can articulate what you did and why was it important, it makes their job a whole lot easier. Most managers actually want to advocate for their reports and want to see them grow further. So you're going to help your boss as well if you spend this time, talking about your work.
Yeah, I mean, it makes perfect sense because you can't really the boss can't advocate for you if he doesn't know what you want to be advocated for, and and if you don't tell him, then you're kind of in this space where you're sitting in your at your cubicle or remotely upset because someone else got a promotion that you thought you deserved, but I mean they were just a better advocate for themselves, and you just assumed that others would just know, but why would they just know? No one's a mind reader out here.
Yes, that's all my course and coaching focuses on to help you with those messaging.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so when it comes to this podcast and YouTube channel, Chaitali, I started it because of my own struggles having to give presentations in front of others working as an engineer. I had to do so on a monthly basis. My first few presentations were terrible. I got a lot better at it over time because I saw the benefit of doing so. So I'm always interested to talk to other technical people about their public speaking journeys. So I'm curious, is speaking in front of others something you've always been good at? And if not, what did you do to get better at it?
I same as you, Neil. I was terrible the first few times, and it was super scary, and I was very nervous. I think the best answer I give for anyone asking about how do you start on this journey is practice. Like same as what you discovered, and I think what you talk about often on your podcast, right? That there is no antidote to practice. Like this, I cannot suggest a better plan than this. If you want to get into speaking of any sort, like public, broadly, externally, internally, at all team meetings or even like your team's weekly meeting, I think it's important to just find those moments to speak up and push through that discomfort. Be ready that some of these are going to flop. Even today, like I feel like, after so many years of so many different events, I still feel that little flutter, like this recording we are doing, right? I had that nervousness and anxiety, and that's natural. You push through that. The more you do these, the more comfortable you'll become. And then I think the other thing that has helped me, especially initially, was just getting more comfortable with the what I am going to talk about. Sometimes this included just knowing my material if it was a presentation, and then sometimes it included just knowing myself well. If I had my own stories, and this is where like knowing, what your values are, why did you do the things you did? What are some highlights, lowlights of your career or life journey? Those things help as well in moments like this. But overall, no, I was never good at it to start with. And, it's a skill that I built up, and I think anyone can build if they want to. They just have to invest the time and energy it needs.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, when it comes to practice, practice makes progress, and you can read all the books or watch all the YouTube videos or listen to all the podcasts like this one, but
Yeah.
you don't get
The
better
theory
at,
only goes so far.
yeah, it really does only go so far. You have to get the reps in. And then when you mentioned the idea of nerves, I'm a big believer in if you're not nervous before a presentation, it's likely because you don't care about the outcome. And if
Yeah.
you certainly want to acquit yourself well and you want to convey what you want the people to get, you want there to be as little of a gap as to what you want to convey and their understanding what you're talking about. You want that gap to be as small as possible. I mean, these are the things I suspect that people who actually care about their presentations are thinking about before giving them. So that's where the nerves come from, and that's a good thing.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well said in that case. I think you only have those strong feelings when it's something you care about, and you want to hope that doesn't go away because then you will stop caring, and then you won't connect with your audience. Even I've seen folks who are like not nervous before, but then during the talk, it was clear that they weren't connecting as much with their audience. So bring that humanity and bring that emotion with you in the talks that you give.
Yeah, and if you don't connect with the audience, then the audience is going to think to themselves, I could have been doing something else. Here I am sitting here listening to this person talk about something, and I don't care.
Especially when it is digital media, right? Like this, right? Like live, maybe you can still make eye contact, and those folks are there in person, so they might feel obliged to still try to stay there with you. But keeping your audience's attention is also another part of the skill that I think I had to learn. And learning by observation, by the way, is also another way I saw like look up how good speakers do it and anyone you admire and I've like looked through lots of talks, podcasts, even live events and learned from the best.
Nice. Yeah. And once you see people in the audience whip out their phones, you know you got a problem.
Yes, totally.
So when it comes to the presentations that you do, Chaitali, do you have a process for them? And if so, what is it?
Preparation first, I like to write down an outline first, like in a document or just, a note. I really work best off an overall theme and outline. So that's the first thing I try to go for in any presentation. Honestly, when I was, at Google also, we used to have like these technical reviews, which were more of like business reviews with our senior leadership. Even there, I try to follow this, not just for topical presentations and discussions like a TED Talk style talk, but also for these internal reviews or even our weekly meetings. This tip works really well. So having an outline and an overarching theme is something I like to start with. And then I can go into the details of, what am I going to say at this time, at this other time, and so on. One other thing I try to do in the preparation is think about different versions of that talk. If I have only 1 minute left, what am I going to say? What is that like one takeaway I want to give? If I have 5 minutes, what am I going to say? And, if I have the entire time of like 30 or 60 minutes, what am I going to say? So preparing that and prioritizing that before the talk also helps me because this is very inevitable and happens very often in, many talks will start later than scheduled time. Maybe your previous speaker ran over, something else happened, you have a mic problem. And if you have that prepared, instead of trying to rush through your 30 minutes of content in 3 minutes, you're going to have a great summarized view to speak about. So, when in doubt, when you have less time left, I prefer to summarize than speed up. So, that also preparation helps me a lot.
That's really a great tip to offer people who are watching or listening to our conversation. And you're absolutely right, especially if you go to a conference, it's almost inevitable that someone's going to go over time. And then now you get to go up there and you maybe you had 15 minutes, but if you want to stay on time, now you have 12. So, so
Totally.
what are you going to do? What are you going to do with the three less minutes? And I think a lot of times what people do is they say, I don't care. I'm still going to go for 15 minutes. So then what
Yeah,
happens?
that or if it's like a hard cut off, like folks will try to speed up and be like, I'm gonna cover my 11 minutes, 15, 20 minutes of material.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, so many instances where I've been in the audience and I'm looking at my watch and I'm like, this thing was supposed to end at 12 o'clock and it's lunchtime and I'm hungry now. I don't care what any of these people are talking about. What I
Either
want to
you
know right
lose
now is
time or you
where's
lose
lunch?
your audience.
Yeah, you lost me already. My stomach is growling. You lost me a while ago. Where the lunch at? That's what I want to know. Tell
And
me
then
that.
One part of that, like you mentioned, keeping your audience, especially when you're like the last speaker before lunch, right? We retain, what was that number? Like some 10, 15% only of what we see here anytime is there's like a study about it as well. So really, like one more thing I try to do in my talks is building on that key message. So if you have that overarching theme and message, you can reinforce that every few slides or every few minutes into your talk. That way your audience leaves with at least one strong takeaway, even if they've not heard you the entire time, you haven't captured their attention the whole time. They will take away something from your talk that way. So to your point, like especially if you're the last speaker before lunch, this is super important to do.
Yeah, for sure. You mentioned nerves before, so I'm curious whenever you feel nervous before a presentation, what do you do to manage your nerves?
Um, let's see. I actually like to take a break from the material and thinking about the event, probably an hour to two, like before the event happens. If it's a morning event, in fact, like from the time I wake up, I will just try to not think about it. I will do a lot of the preparation beforehand and, like I mentioned, be ready. But that break always helps me, detach and kind of get my bearings together. There are different techniques that work for different folks. I've seen some others who, like to look at like Instagram videos and that calms them down. For some others, it is just doing some breathing exercises. So find what works for you is what I would say over here. What works for me may not work for you. Like taking that long break from thinking about the material might be something that spikes up your anxiety more. But finding what helps you with calming down is part of the preparation. And the more composed you are, the better you're going to do. So really finding out like, what can help me get centered and show up my best self helps me a lot.
Nice. For the people who are watching or listening to our conversation and they want to get better at being better, well, they want to get better at communicating with others, especially as a technical person talking to non-technical people. What's the first step they should take in making that happen?
First, find opportunities to really do your speaking, right? And this is what I have coached many engineers over the years. You're going to have to first push through that discomfort and raise your hand at opportunities. This could just start with something very local in your company, in your team, and then you can build onto it and grow from there. You don't have to necessarily jump to like, I'm going to do a TED talk and apply there right now. It can start small, but it starts with raising your hand and saying, I will take this. Because many of these opportunities you're not told to do, because nobody wants to force someone to be a public speaker. You are expected to raise your hand and then come in, especially if you're in a technical role. It's probably not daily part of your job, so you're going to have to find the opportunities. It's okay to start small, but raise your hand and build out from there, and force yourself. The first few times you might have to push through the discomfort, but every time we'll build on the next one, and soon you're going to be a pro at it.
Wonderful. This has been a great conversation, Chaitali. Thank you so much for being a guest. How can people get in touch with you?
My LinkedIn profile is the best. Please feel free to follow me, send me a connection request. I also answer direct messages there. So happy to connect with folks.
Wonderful. Well, everyone, that marks the end of another edition of Teach the Geek interviews. My name is Neil Thompson. I am the founder of Teach the Geek. I work with technical professionals so they can present more effectively, especially in front of non-technical audiences. And you can learn more about that at teachthegeek.com. Again, that's teachthegeek.com. Until next time, take care and stay safe. Thanks, Chaitali.
Thank you.